Hi, my name is Elena Marlowe, and I'm 29 years old. 4 years ago, I married a man named Daniel Whitmore, convinced I had finally found the safe harbor I'd been searching for my entire life. Daniel was charming in a way that made rooms tilt toward him, successful, polished, the kind of man who held doors open and remembered anniversaries without reminders. He came from what people like to call old Texas money. His parents, Richard and Catherine Whitmore, owned a chain of upscale steakhouses across the state. His younger sister, Victoria, was married to a respected cardiologist, Dr. Ethan Caldwell. They lived in a sprawling Highland Park estate that looked like something out of a magazine spread. And then there was me. I grew up bouncing between foster homes. I worked double shifts at diners to pay for community college. I taught myself coding at night and eventually built a stable career as a web designer. Everything I had, I built myself. To them, I wasn't self-made. I was charity. "Oh, Elena made the cornbread," Catherine would announce at Sunday dinners, smiling with a sweetness that never reached her eyes. "Isn't it adorable how she tries? Of course, we usually order from Central Market's bakery, but bless her heart." Victoria was worse. She'd glance at my Target dress like it offended her vision. "Sweetie, if you ever need something appropriate for our events, just let me know," she'd murmur. "I have designer pieces I don't even wear anymore." Daniel would squeeze my knee under the table. "That's just how they are," he'd whisper later. "They mean well." They didn't. The first crack appeared at our wedding. Catherine insisted on planning everything. My suggestions disappeared like they'd never existed. The floral arrangements, the venue, the guest list, all curated to fit the Whitmore image. During the reception, I overheard Catherine speaking to her country club friends. "We're just grateful Daniel found someone after his ex-fiancé left him for that tech entrepreneur," she said with a dramatic sigh. "We were worried he'd never recover. Elena might not be what we envisioned, but at least she's grateful." Grateful. Like I'd been rescued. That word lodged in my throat and stayed there. Everything shifted the year Victoria and I both became pregnant. We hadn't planned it together, but from the moment the news broke, it turned into something ugly. "We're having our nursery designed by the firm that did the Gaines twins' rooms," Victoria announced at dinner, casually referencing celebrity designers. "It's going to be featured in a home magazine." "That's lovely," I said quietly. "Daniel and I are painting ours ourselves, sage green." Catherine laughed softly. "Richard, didn't we use that color in the restaurant restrooms?" The comparisons never stopped. Victoria's baby shower was a catered affair at the Dallas Country Club with 300 guests and custom monogrammed champagne flutes. Mine was a small gathering in our apartment with my coworkers, the closest thing to family I'd ever had. At Victoria's shower, Catherine pulled me aside near the dessert table. "I just worry," she said, lowering her voice, "about what kind of life you can provide. No extended family, no connections. It's heartbreaking, really." I smiled, but something cold settled inside me. Fast forward to delivery day. By some cruel twist of fate, Victoria and I went into labor on the same day at Presbyterian Hospital, Dallas. She was placed in the VIP maternity suite. I was down the hall in a standard room. I gave birth first. A healthy, beautiful baby girl. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. We named her Lily. When Daniel held her, he cried openly. "She's perfect, Elena," he whispered. "She looks just like you." For the first time in months, I felt chosen. 2 hours later, chaos erupted from Victoria's suite. Nurses rushed in and out. The air shifted. Dr. Caldwell emerged looking shattered. Victoria's baby girl had been stillborn. Despite everything, my heart broke for her. No woman deserves that pain. Daniel went to comfort his family. I stayed with Lily, memorizing every sound she made. Around 10 p.m., a nurse I didn't recognize entered my room. She was older, gray streaks in her hair, eyes too sharp for her soft voice. "Just need to take the baby for standard tests," she said, reaching for Lily. Every instinct I had screamed no. "Which tests?" I asked. "Routine blood work, protocol." The pediatrician cleared her. She hesitated, just for a second. "That's not necessary," she said when I told her I'd come along. Then she left. Not walked. left, like she was avoiding something. I pressed the call button immediately. My assigned nurse, Sarah, hurried in. No additional tests were ordered, she said, her brow furrowing. I'm calling security. The hallway lights dimmed for night hours. My heart wouldn't slow down because something was very, very wrong, and I didn't yet know how far it would go. It was close to midnight when Richard and Catherine Whitmore walked into my hospital room like they owned it. Daniel had gone downstairs for coffee. Sarah had just taken Lily for her scheduled feeding. The room felt hollow without her soft breathing beside me. Richard closed the door carefully. The quiet click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. "We need to talk," he said. I forced a tired smile. Of course. I expected condolences, maybe an awkward attempt at unity after Victoria's tragedy. Instead, Catherine sat on the edge of my hospital bed without asking. "There's been enough heartbreak today," she began, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her skirt. "We've come up with a solution, something that helps everyone." My stomach tightened. "What solution?" Richard didn't hesitate. "The babies," he said flatly. "They look remarkably similar. Same dark hair, similar weight. During all the chaos tonight, it would be very easy for there to be confusion." For a moment, I didn't understand. Then I did. And the air left my lungs. "You're not serious." "You're young, Alina," Catherine said gently, too gently. "You can have more children. Victoria, the doctors said this might have been her only chance." "You want me to switch my baby?" I whispered. Richard leaned forward. "Think logically. Victoria gets the daughter she deserves. You and Daniel can try again. We'll compensate you generously." "Compensate. Pay off your student loans," Catherine continued smoothly. "Buy you a house in Plano. Set up a trust. You'd never struggle again." "You're trying to buy my child." "We're trying to preserve this family," Richard snapped, his patience thinning. "Do you understand what this loss does to our name, to our standing?" There it was. Not grief. Image. "My daughter isn't a PR solution," I said, my voice shaking. Catherine's eyes hardened. "With your background, wouldn't she be better off with parents who can provide everything?" My vision blurred with fury. "She has everything," I said. "She has me." Richard's expression changed, the businessman mask slipping. "You don't have a choice." The words were quiet, but they carried weight. "Dr. Caldwell has privileges here," he continued. "One word about negligent care during your delivery, questions about your mental stability. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected cardiologist or a foster kid with anxiety issues?" Daniel would never let you do this." Catherine's lips curved. "Daniel?" My heart pounded. "What does that mean? Remember when you were laid off from hostessing at our flagship restaurant when you first started dating him?" she asked sweetly. "He told me it was budget cuts." Catherine laughed softly. "We don't do budget cuts, dear. We do what's necessary." The room tilted. "You made him fire me?" "He agreed it was for the best," Richard said. The betrayal hit harder than the threat. They stood to leave. "Think carefully," Catherine said at the door. "Victoria is shattered. You could fix this." When they left, my hands were shaking so violently, I couldn't unclench them. When Daniel returned 20 minutes later, I told him everything. Every word. Every threat. He rubbed his forehead. "They're grieving, Elena. They didn't mean it like that. They offered to buy Lily. They're desperate. They said you fired me because they told you to." His face went pale. "That was different. They were criticizing you constantly. I thought I was protecting you." "By lying to me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said the one thing that broke something inside me. "You're exhausted. Maybe you misunderstood." I stared at him. The man who held our daughter hours ago like she was a miracle. The man who couldn't stand between me and his parents. From that moment on, I didn't let Lily out of my sight. When nurses came for checks, I went with them. I slept with one hand on her bassinet. Every footstep in the hallway made me jerk awake. By day 2, Dr. Ethan Caldwell visited my room. Professional smile. Measured tone. "Elena," he said, "I've been informed you're experiencing heightened anxiety." "I'm fine." "This hypervigilance, fear that someone might take your baby, classic postpartum anxiety. I can prescribe something mild." I don't need medication. The nurses are concerned. If this continues, we may need to evaluate whether you're fit for discharge. There it was. The threat dressed as care. I've begun documenting your behavior, he added gently, for your own protection. After he left, my chest felt tight. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining this. And yet, they were building a narrative around me. That afternoon, Daniel's cousin Brianna came to visit. She worked as a paralegal downtown and had always looked vaguely embarrassed at family dinners. "How are you holding up?" she asked softly. I broke. I told her everything. Her face drained of color. "Oh my God, Elena. They tried something similar years ago." "What?" "With my mom, after my grandfather died. She wouldn't sign over her inheritance to Richard. They tried to get her declared mentally unfit." My blood ran cold. What do I do? Document everything. Get witnesses. Do not let them isolate you. That night, I called my best friend, Carmen. "I need you here," I whispered. "Bring Marcus and Jade. I need people." They came immediately. Marcus started logging visitor times. Jade, who worked in legal compliance, began asking careful questions about hospital procedures. Carmen stayed beside me, her hand steady on my shoulder. "You're not crazy," she said firmly. "And you're not alone." Marcus frowned at his tablet. "That nurse who came in last night, she doesn't work this floor. She's assigned to the VIP wing." My heart stopped. Brianna texted me moments later. "Check your email." Attached was a folder. Police reports. Civil complaints. Years of lawsuits tied to Richard and Catherine's businesses. At the center of several disputes, Dr. Caldwell. Expert testimony. Character assessments. Medical opinions that destroyed reputations. This wasn't grief-fueled madness. This was a pattern, and I had just become their next target. The morning of discharge arrived too quickly. Sunlight streamed through the hospital blinds, deceptively warm. Lily was bundled in a pale yellow blanket, her tiny fingers curling around mine, as if she already understood that the world outside this room wasn't safe. Daniel barely spoke while we packed. He kept checking his phone, waiting. At 10:17 a.m., the Whitmores arrived. All of them. Richard, Catherine, Victoria, and Dr. Ethan Caldwell. Victoria looked hollowed out, like grief had carved something permanent into her face. She leaned heavily against Ethan's arm, her body fragile in a way that made my anger ache. I had never wished this pain on her, but I was no longer naive. While Daniel handled paperwork, Richard pulled me aside near the window. "One last time," he said quietly. "Think carefully. We can still make this right. We'll ensure you're financially secure. You won't have to struggle the way you always have." The way you always have. That condescending tone, like my past was a stain. "My daughter is not for sale," I said, louder this time. Victoria turned. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice thin from crying. "Nothing," Catherine rushed. "Elena's emotional. Hormones." "No," I said. Your parents have been pressuring me to switch Lily with your baby since the first night." Silence crashed into the room. Victoria blinked. "Mom?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Tell me she's lying," Victoria whispered. Neither of them spoke, and in that silence, everything shattered. Victoria's knees buckled slightly. "You wanted to steal her baby?" she breathed. "After I lost mine?" "We were trying to help you," Catherine insisted. "Help me?" Victoria's voice cracked, then rose. "By making me raise another woman's child? By pretending my daughter didn't die?" Her grief transformed into something sharp. "Do you think I wouldn't know?" she cried. "Do you think I wouldn't feel it?" Ethan stepped forward. "Victoria, they were acting out of love." "Love?" she snapped, pulling away from him. "You helped them, didn't you?" His silence answered her. The room felt radioactive. Daniel finally stepped forward. "Dad, Mom, you threatened my wife?" "We were protecting this family," Richard barked. "Protecting?" I said. "You tried to gaslight me. You tried to medicate me. You sent someone to take my baby." Security appeared at the doorway, alerted earlier by Jade and Marcus, who who were standing near the nurse's station watching everything unfold. Hospital administration followed. An investigation was launched immediately. Within hours, the nurse from the VIP wing was located. Her name wasn't even on Lily's care log. When confronted with the visitor records Marcus had compiled and the questions Jade raised about procedure violations, she broke. She confessed. Richard had arranged payment through a private account tied to one of their restaurant subsidiaries. Ethan had provided access credentials and assurances that documentation could be adjusted. They had planned to switch the hospital bracelets during a shift overlap. Paperwork would follow. A private attorney had already drafted emergency guardianship documents. This wasn't desperation. It was premeditated. Dr. Ethan Caldwell was suspended that same week pending medical board review. And once the investigation went public, other stories surfaced. A former nurse who claimed Ethan had pressured her into falsifying patient notes. A resident who alleged her career was sabotaged after she rejected his advances. A rival physician whose malpractice accusation had been fueled by expert testimony from Ethan himself. Meanwhile, the Department of Labor began examining the Whitmore restaurant chain. Former employees came forward. Wage theft, harassment, threats disguised as performance reviews. The Dallas Morning News ran the story across the front page. Prominent family accused in attempted infant switch scandal. Daniel moved into a separate apartment 2 weeks later. "I didn't know they'd go that far," he said during one of our first meetings with attorneys. "You knew enough," I replied quietly. "You knew they pressured you. You knew they threatened me. You chose to look away." He didn't argue, because he couldn't. Victoria filed for divorce from Ethan before the criminal trial even began. During testimony, she sat across from me. "I lost my baby," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "That nearly destroyed me. But discovering my husband and parents planned to steal my sister-in-law's child, that finished it." Richard and Catherine were charged with conspiracy, harassment, and attempted child trafficking. Ethan faced additional charges for falsifying medical documentation and abuse of professional authority. The courtroom revealed more than I expected. Text messages, financial transfers, a drafted statement blaming my documented postpartum instability. They had built a narrative. I was supposed to be unstable, overwhelmed, unfit. Instead, I was furious. The verdict came down like a hammer. Richard received 2 years in federal prison and 5 years probation. Catherine received 18 months. Ethan lost his medical license permanently and was sentenced to 3 years. The Highland Park Country Club revoked the Whitmore membership within days. Restaurants began closing as customers boycotted. Employees walked out. Investors pulled funding. Within 18 months, the Whitmore empire filed for bankruptcy. Catherine sobbed during sentencing. "We've lost everything." Judge Alvarez responded without emotion. "You lost those things because of your choices, not because this mother refused to surrender her child." Daniel attended every hearing. He looked smaller each time, like someone waking from a dream they didn't choose but still participated in. When the trial ended, he approached me outside the courthouse. "I failed you," he said quietly. I didn't disagree. Daniel showed up at my new apartment 3 weeks after the sentencing. He stood outside the door holding white lilies, an ironic choice that neither of us acknowledged. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he said when I let him in, "but I want to try, for Lily, for us." The word us sounded fragile. "I'm not keeping you from your daughter," I said evenly. "You can see her. Supervised visits for now." His shoulders sagged in relief. "But we're not getting back together." "Elena." "When someone threatens your child," I said softly, "you don't hesitate. You don't rationalize. You protect them." He didn't argue this time. He visits Lily twice a month at a family visitation center. He pays child support without complaint. He started therapy, trying to untangle the loyalty he confused with obedience. I don't hate him, but I don't trust him. And trust is oxygen. Without it, love suffocates. Victoria and I meet for coffee once a month now. The first time was awkward. We sat across from each other in silence before she finally reached across the table. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For not seeing it sooner. for letting them make me believe I was superior to you. Grief softened her, stripped away the polish. She channels her pain differently now. She started a support group for mothers who've experienced loss. She speaks openly about healthy grief, about not replacing pain with denial. They wanted to erase your daughter, she told the group once, glancing at me in the back row, like she was an inconvenience. But stealing someone else's baby doesn't bring yours back. It just creates more devastation. Her divorce from Ethan was finalized within 6 months. He appealed his sentence. It failed. As for Richard and Catherine, prison humbled them only slightly. Through their attorney, they sent a letter asking to meet their granddaughter. I didn't open it twice. I fed it into my paper shredder and watched the pieces fall. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. I received a promotion at work not long after the trial ended. My boss told me my composure under pressure impressed the executive team. If only they knew how close I came to breaking. I bought a modest 3-bedroom house in Richardson. Good schools, quiet street, a backyard big enough for a swing set. Carmen, Marcus, and Jade are Lily's godparents. Every Sunday we host barbecues. No passive-aggressive comments, no comparisons, no whispered judgments about status, just laughter. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I replay that first evening in the hospital. The gray-haired nurse reaching for my daughter. The click of the door. Catherine's manicured hand resting on my hospital bed as she suggested a solution. They looked at me and saw someone alone, disposable. A foster kid who wouldn't fight back. They miscalculated. Because motherhood rewired something inside me. It turned fear into clarity. It turned doubt into steel. Lily is 3 now. She has my stubborn streak and Daniel's laugh. When she runs across the yard with her curls bouncing, I feel the kind of gratitude that makes your chest ache. I still check doors twice at night. I still hold her hand a little tighter in crowded places. Trauma doesn't evaporate. It settles. But so does strength. Richard and Catherine lost their restaurants, their reputation, their social circle. But what they truly lost was access. Access to the little girl they saw as a bargaining chip. They reduced her to a solution, a replacement, an asset. She is none of those things. She is a child who wakes up every morning knowing she was chosen, protected, fought for. Family isn't about country clubs or business empires. It's about who stands beside you when someone tries to take what's yours. It's about who refuses to let you be rewritten as unstable when you're simply aware. They tried to label me hysterical, paranoid, unfit, but instincts aren't illness, and love isn't weakness. It's ferocious. If you've ever had to stand up to people who claimed they were acting for your own good, you know how lonely that moment feels. When everyone tells you you're overreacting. When the people with money and connections speak calmly, confidently, as if that alone makes them right. But here's what I learned. The quietest voice in the room is often the truth. The shaking hands, the tight chest, the whisper that says something is wrong. Listen to it. Because sometimes the people who smile the widest are the ones planning the deepest betrayal. And sometimes the woman they underestimate becomes the one who brings everything down. Lily sleeps down the hall now, safe, loved, mine. And no one will ever try to take her in the night again.